Hi everyone. You are in such a weird spot in my car this time. And I am parked in a weird spot because all my regular spots are gone. It's a weird day. But anyway, before I go into the library, since I have a lot of holds, I wanted to talk about some of the books that I've read that I'm going to be returning. I just finished this book. It is Cold Enough for Snow. It's under 100 pages. I've heard so much about this by Jessica Au. She is an Australian writer. Apparently she's written another book. I read that on Google. I didn't know, I haven't seen anywhere what that other book is, but this was like a palate cleanser for me. I thought it would be too meditative, too slow, two people wandering around Japan. It's an unnamed female narrator and her mother. She's a grown-up young female taking her mother to Japan. Her mother is from Hong Kong, and she is she's been very much, the mother has been very much brought up in tradition and in a time where she is she's very reserved, and that's how she was brought up. So she doesn't say much, and the unnamed narrator hopes that by traveling to all these beautiful places in Japan, it'll into bookstores and cute shops and out in the country, that it'll give them an opportunity over lunch, dinner at a cafe, browsing something, to have a dialogue. Because her mother is so reserved. So I didn't think I'd have the patience for this book because I knew it was atmospheric. But what I really appreciated was the way that Jessica Au will start a scene, and then she'll say to her mother, do you remember the time, I don't know if you remember when I had that job at the restaurant? Yeah, and I don't know if you remember the boyfriend that I had at the time. And then the narrator in her own mind will go off into memories and maybe be rethinking those times and that relationship with the boyfriend and how it may have informed her as a young person and maybe influencing her still today. It has some beautiful passages. You have to be in the right mood. You have to have enough patience, and somehow I did. It's worth it if you do. No plot. So it's that kind of book. All right. What else in here did I read? I have lots of people around my car. I'm in a very busy street. I want to hear from any of you who have read a Josephine Hart, who are Josephine Hart fans, because this book was weird. And I'm going to call it Gothic, even though it was written in the 90s, because atmospheric, that's not necessarily Gothic. You get a sense of bleakness. Nobody's really that happy. There's a sense of stoicness, close, almost, what's the word? Stifling village. It's unnamed. The time period's unnamed, but you gather from what's not mentioned, like cars, that it's supposed to be early. But the things that Josephine Hart doesn't add makes this writing extraordinary for me. She chooses not to give you all that information. And the way that she layers on the strangeness of the main character. And she doesn't give you all the answers of what is going on. What's her relationship with this Lord Grantham guy? I'm not saying that right. Is it an inappropriate relationship? We find out later some things, but I'm not going to give away anything that happens in this book. There's a lot that happens, but I'm not going to say anything about it because I didn't know a thing about this book, and my joy, my shock, was letting it unfold. There is some crazy stuff, and if I was in a book club, I'd be talking about that crazy stuff right now, but I won't. I'd say explore this book. If you want a Gothic tale, some weird behavior, and some horror without it being tropey, this is your book. I'm going to read another Josephine Hart. I have another one in here, but I'm not going to read it now. I'm returning it. It's called Damage. The Damage and Oblivion. Just to give you an idea, Oh, obsession is a big theme of this book, by the way. Josephine Hart's The Stillest Day. I didn't say the name of it. But, Josephine Hart's oeuvre is books called Sin, Oblivion, Damage, just to give you an idea of the kinds of books that Josephine Hart writes. So I'm really want to get to this book, but I don't want to do it now because I just have to take a break from the intensity. But yeah, everything else. Oh no, wait, there's one more. I didn't get to some of these other things I'm not going to read, but The Deceptions. Jill Bielowski. I think I must have read this in the New York Times or the New Yorker. It's a book about a professor who's a poet I'm sorry, she's not a professor. She teaches at a private boys' school. Just has this weird relationship that builds with another visiting poet. She's married. She has a teenager that's gone off to college. I'm not going to say much also about this book because I thought it was more enjoyable not knowing a thing. But I have to say it's weird that the inappropriateness isn't, I'll just leave it there, isn't brought up as a problem. There are other words for it, but I'm not going to talk about them because then that reveals what happens. But yeah, and I don't know. It was weird. I love the cover. I'll just say that. She's a poet, I think, in real life. Is she? Am I making that up? She's written a few books. Yeah, she's a poet. So I think that's what kept me going was the writing. I really liked it. But I mean, it's not going to be memorable the way that the Josephine Hart experience was. So I will let you know what I pick up once I get in there and pick the stuff up. I'll tune in later. It's not going to be from the car, though, because I'm on my lunch hour and I got to get back. So I'll talk to you later. Hello. I thought I would continue what I started yesterday. I'm in the car again. It's Saturday now. I am doing a lot of running around because it has decided to rain and I had to stop. I had to halt all yard work, take a break, run these errands, and then go back. It is extremely humid today. I took a really, I don't know why I said really, I went on a run this morning, just a quick run in the neighborhood on a trail, and I didn't realize the sweltering humid. I mean, I go out early, but my gosh, I don't do well in humidity at all. So I melted, just melted when I was out there, my energy. Okay, about the books. I still have my bag here in my car. Let me see. Okay. I picked up Lucy by Jamaica Kincaid because Simon and Rachel from Tier Books podcast, excellent podcast. They sometimes will say what books they're going to be talking about on the next podcast, and they had said that Lucy by Jamaica Kincaid was one of them. This is a book, so Jamaica Kincaid is a West Indies author who I haven't read. Lucy is a West Indian girl who is sent to the U.S. I don't know what time period, but she's sent there to work as an au pair for people in New York, maybe? So it's a coming of age story. It's a comedy of manners, probably, because she's coming from a completely different world. She's dropped into what I'm assuming is, wealthy, upper class situation in New York City. And it's so fish out of water. I don't know anything else. I've never read Jamaica Kincaid, but the podcast is already out, the episode, but I'm going to wait. It's a pretty short book. And then I picked up Frost in May by Antonia White. This got on my radar. I don't know whether it was Pear Jelly on Bookstagram that was talking about this, or maybe an episode from Backlisted Podcast, but she's an interesting author. This was written in the 30s. This is a boarding house novel about Ferdinand. Is that her name? But they call her Nanda, and her parents send her to a boarding school, which wasn't that unusual. This is in the UK, and the boarding school is called Convent of the Five Wounds, and so this is a Catholic order of nuns, and very strict. They're ruling by fear. And if you don't say your prayers, who knows what's going to happen to your soul? No promises what could possibly happen. And then I think the story goes on as Nanda gets old enough to leave the convent as a teenager. I'm not sure, but I'm really interested to get to it. Another book I picked up because of a podcast episode, upcoming episode, is Mooks and Gripes. They're going to be talking about Natalia Ginsburg's The Dry Heart. I've read a couple Natalia Ginsburg's and I love them. I feel like, so she's an Italian writer. I feel like she's in the vein of Elena Ferrante, except she was an earlier author. She was born in 1916. The two I've read are more family-based saga novels, but this one, I haven't read the whole blurb, but the beginning says, "The Dry Heart begins and ends with the matter-of-fact pronouncement, 'I shot him between the eyes.'" And Maggie Nelson blurbs it on the back. She says, "I'm utterly entranced by Ginsburg's style, her mysterious directness, her salutary ability to lay things bare that never feels contrived or cold, only necessary, honest, and clear." That'll be a good one. I was in the mood to pick this up again, because I think I got it out of the library once. It's Amina Cain's A Horse at Night on writing. After I listened to yet another podcast, Reading the Room, Jalen's wonderful podcast and booktube channel, which is called The Bar in the Bookcase. So he puts his interviews on both the YouTube channel and the podcast. And I listened to his interview with Amina Cain and became re-interested in this book after that interview. So check that out. I read Indelicacy and I really liked it. And I got to know a lot more about Amina Cain's writing style and why she wrote this book. It's a book of essays on writing and different authors, so I'm really interested. It's raining again. You can probably hear that. Okay, two new books. One is The Adult by Bronwyn Fischer. I'm gonna check out where I read about this book, because it was either the New Yorker or the New York Times, and I just read enough of a review to understand whether I want to check the book out. I don't keep going, because I don't want to know too much. And I did the same here on the inside of this book. And I feel like I'm the first patron to have this book because it came in on 6/23. So maybe I was, since I just picked it up yesterday. This is another boarding house novel, so I know that's why it hooked me. But it has a little darkness to it and a little obsession. It says it's addictively gripping coming-of-age story. 18-year-old Natalie has just arrived at her first year of university in Toronto, leaving a small town. She doesn't know who she wants to be. Doesn't have enough sense of herself, you gather, that she can just show up as herself. And then she meets Nora, an older woman who takes an unexpected interest in her. That's all I want to know. I'm not going to read any further. So yeah, I'm interested to try it out. And another new book, and this one, I know I'm the first patron because it was stamped June 29th. I've been wanting to try Lori Moore. I'm just looking at how much it's raining, and I'm glad I'm actually talking right now, because I wouldn't have wanted to be caught in this rain running into the store. Anyway, I wanted to check out Lori Moore, and I saw this book was coming out. I Am Homeless If This Is Not My Home. What an intriguing title. So I think she's an essayist. I think she's written another fiction, Who Will Run the Frog Hospital. So she's based in Nashville, Tennessee, because it says, a teacher visiting his dying brother in the Bronx, a mysterious journal from the 19th century stolen from a boarding house, a therapy clown, and an assassin, both presumed dead, but perhaps not dead at all. I don't know any more than that. Speaking of authors I want to check out, I did pick up an Atessa Moshfegh. Now, I picked up this book a couple years ago, and I just wasn't in the mood. I don't know if I'm going to pick it up now, but it was the only Atessa Moshfegh they had at the library. yesterday, and I do want to try one of her books at some point. I don't know if right now is going to be that time, but I thought I would just pick it up while I was there. I think I might try Eileen, that I've heard about, a book of hers. I don't know whether I'm going to get to this because it's about an upper class young woman who has an inheritance, and she's living in New York City, and she decides I think she's a Columbia University graduate, and she decides she just wants to check out from the world and just take a bunch of medication and just go to sleep. My year of rest and relaxation. So, and she's working with like a quacky doctor in order to do that. So I don't know, but even if I don't get to it, I will try one of her books at some point. And then two last ones, I should say. I picked up a book by Scholastique Mukasonga, a Rwandan writer. This is called Our Lady of the Nile. This is a book made by Archipelago Books. They make these beautiful square-ish books. And she has written at least 3 memoirs about her time in Rwanda and about a couple different evacuations she's had to make because of the terrible conflict and annihilation that's happened there. This takes place, so she has set this story 15 years prior to the 1994 genocide. This is a boarding school of girls. They're sent to a Catholic boarding school. It's called Our Lady of the Nile. They're there to be molded into respectable citizens, and she's going to tell the story through the I think it's third person narration, but she's going to show you the lives or the inner thoughts and lives of these young girls as they are taking on the viewpoints of their parents, the political viewpoints. And this convent of girls is a microcosm of the country's mounting racial tensions and violence. So I thought I would just give it a try. I don't know if this is going to be the right time for this book, but I thought I'd give it a go. And then to end on a really fun note, I picked up Nevada by Imogen Binney. This is a book that has been reprinted. It was written or published 10 years ago by a trans writer, Imogen Binney. I don't know whether she's written any other books, but I know she's a writer and she publishes things in different publications. This is a book about Maria, and we're following Maria, and when this book opens, she's friends with, or maybe even her roommate is another trans person, or at least someone who is possibly going through the process. I'm not sure what stage her friend is in, but it's based in New York City. Maria works at a bookstore, and there's a blurb on here from Tori Peters, who is the author of Detransition Baby, and Tori says, Nevada is a book that changed my life. It shaped both my worldview and my personhood, making me the writer I am. And it did so by the oldest of methods, by telling a wise, hilarious, and gripping story. So I read a couple pages of this online, and I was just immediately in the story. I just kept wanting to read it, so I got it out, and I hope to get to it. That is all. I guess I'm going into the store now. I'm glad I have my umbrella, and I'll talk to you later.